Hello, good morning, Shalom family. On this Friday morning, September 20th, 2024, this is the 11th episode of Exploring the Motherland, the Future of West Africa, as it's titled. And I'm your host, Garth. And Exploring the Motherland is a show to help promote the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. Some of you know this mission, some of you don't, but I will continue to repeat it every time we start the show. Quest Unite Africa's mission is to promote economic development and critical infrastructure. We do this through four initiatives. Our main initiatives: medical, business, technological, innovation, and cultural engagement. Exploring the motherland will keep the family and the community abreast of what is happening on the continent, news developments that relate to our mission at Quest Unite Africa, and how we want to continue to move and help create strategic relationships with our brothers and sisters for the benefit of the African diaspora and the African continent as a whole. So that's the intro, and let's start. Nigeria's NNPC raises petrol prices again as Dangote fuel hits market. So basically, family, if you were following last week, Nigeria is experiencing petrol, gas, energy, discrepancies and problems. They are now starting to, you know, build up the infrastructure in order to have refineries that are able to even, service the country itself. They've relied heavily on imports of gas, of different, petrol products. And the people in Nigeria rely heavily on petrol because a lot of them are not connected to the main grid or the main infrastructure of the country as a whole. And the electrical grid is really suffering, and petrol is important, the pricing of it. And this new refinery, this gentleman, Dangote, is one of these big Nigerian oil refinery CEOs, and he's now at the stage of distributing gas to the refinery, and they're just coming together and trying to price it. And this article explains how they are trying to eventually trade and sell the gas or petrol in naira, the Nigerian currency, but at the same time they're still selling it to the country at the U.S. dollar fiat currency, and that continues to cause price instability for the community. I mean, what am I saying? For the population as a whole. So that's what the story is going to talk about, and let me just start it and let them talk about it.
Nigeria's state oil firm has increased the price of petrol by 11%, the second rise in 2 weeks. It's a move that comes the day after NNPC started buying fuel from the giant Dangote refinery on the outskirts of Lagos. On Monday, NNPC said it had increased gasoline prices from 858 naira a litre, or a little over half a US dollar, to 950 naira in Lagos and as high as 1,019 naira in northeastern states. It said it buys from Dangote at 898 naira per litre. The price of gasoline is a sensitive issue in Nigeria. Many households and businesses use it to power generators as the majority of citizens are not connected to the grid. The latest price increase is likely to add to public anger. Nigerians are already struggling with inflation of 33.4%, driving up transport costs and causing a cost of living crisis that led to violent protests in early August. The government had been subsidizing petrol for decades until President Bola Tinubu began removing support when he took office in May last year. Nigeria expects the 650,000 barrel per day Dangote refinery to end years of costly imports of gasoline. From October, NNPC will supply 385,000 barrels of crude per day to be paid for in Naira by Dangote refinery, which will in turn sell its fuel in the local currency. However, NNPC said it had started buying the fuel from Dangote on Sunday in US dollars, and that a deal to purchase gasoline in Naira was still to take effect.
Okay, so basically you hear that the state gas company of Nigeria, NNPC, made a business initiative with the owner of the Dagante fuel refinery, and they are trying to create economic development, critical infrastructure with the distribution of gas at a cheaper, affordable. Well, they're getting there. They're trying to do that, but they would need some help to do that in order to stop the price cost and allow for fixed prices so people expect and know what they're going to get at the pump instead of prices continually to become unstable. And again, you hear that they were subsidizing the gas on imports, which is again insane because Nigeria is one of the oil richest countries in the world. They should be refining their own oil, and they should be exporting their oil on an exponential level that they could be able to honestly give the whole sub-Saharan Africa gas if they were able to get the infrastructure and the consulting and the help in order to be able to achieve that goal. Or they would need some consultation to make those benchmarks or those goals feasible with the right expertise. There's people within our community who have that expertise of energy consulting, developing plans to use energy more efficiently. You could also have experts look at how the energy usage is within the country and how they could find ways to cut costs or waste of inefficiency in that area. And also they could help them be able to ease off of petrol and use other renewable energy sources such as solar and things of that nature. And they'll talk about this in greater detail with this next video.
Petrol from the Dangote refinery is now available in commercial quantities. Well, what are the implications and what is the outlook for Nigeria's downstream petroleum sector? Tonight, Babajide Ogusol, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data and analyst, is here to share more insights about the future of petrol supply in Nigeria. Babajide, it's great to have you again on the News at 10.
Welcome back again, Ayatollah.
Yes, welcome back. It's great to be back. But of course, we're looking at the situation concerning petrol, Dangote refinery. Good news, I should say, now producing petrol in commercial quantities. Babajide, what are the implications for the government and the people of Nigeria going forward?
Like you described it, clearly for a $20 billion investment over the years for the owners, it's good news. But what does this really mean? In street language, there's something called everybody go collect. In simple terms, everybody now will be buying Panadol. Clearly, Alhaji Aliko will need some of this. The NNPC is going to need some of this. Citizens you and I will need some of this, and I'll explain all of this. The labor union, we'll get some paracetamol as well. Now, why is all of this important? First is, why will Aliko Dangote need some paracetamol? The evidence we have is that the price from the Dangote refinery, approximately 898 naira, and that's the basic cost. However, this product, same product, the NNPC is bringing in for approximately 840 naira. So clearly, Aliko Dangote will have some headaches on how we can achieve what the NNPC is achieving. The citizens will have some headache because the price of petrol is not about to go down. The labor union will have some headaches. Should they protest or should they not protest? Is the labor union asking for a full market price, or do they want the federal government to come in to provide some support on pricing level? Analysts clearly also are having some headache, looking at the sort of billions potentially that this refinery will be going into the pockets of Aliko Dangote. Well, finally, Ayotunde, perhaps the greatest headache, and most paracetamol will be used by the federal government. And why do I say so? By this time next year, the electoral calendar will be up. And if we take a look at where the sort of numbers the president had in the last election vis-a-vis the sort of price petrol has changed since he came in, you'll be stunned. Here's what I mean. Looking at where we started from last week. In the North Central region, looking at since when the president came in, price of petrol has increased by 258%. Don't forget how today the president only scored 39% of the votes in the North Central. Look at the Northwest. Northwest petrol price has grown by, based on the National Bureau of Statistics, 220%. Again, in the Northwest, where you have a lot of votes, the president only had 40% of the total votes. Look at the Southeast. Petrol price has increased by 207%. The president only had 6% of the votes in the Southeast. And in the South-South, petrol price has increased by 185%. In the last election, the president only had 28% of the votes in the South-South. So you clearly understand the sort of headaches that, yes, the federal government will be having, especially the president, on what should be done to petrol pricing. Should these prices be allowed to keep skyrocketing? Will Aliko Dangote really be able to provide any help to lower this price? The information we currently have shows that the NNPC might most likely be landing this product at a significantly lower price. So the question is, it's good news looking at the journey so far, but at whose cost, Ayotunde?
Interesting. So how much, of course, will the sales of petrol help to stabilize the naira coming from the Dangote refinery? I mean, because we talk about NNPCL, of course, still having a larger say in the way the whole business is being run. How does that affect Dangote refinery?
So I was hoping that it will. Most likely it might, but I'm sticking to the facts. And if we look at the facts from the National Bureau of Statistics about how much petrol is imported into the country relative to all other things that are imported in the country, it provides clarity on what exactly is taking most of Nigeria's foreign exchange. And if we take a look at Nigeria's trade, looking at how much have we imported since the 2000 April last year to date, June 2024, total imports into Nigeria, Ayotunde, 53.4 trillion manufactured goods. Based on the evidence from the National Bureau of Statistics, manufactured goods accounts for more than half of everything that comes into Nigeria. Petrol, oil, energy goods, just about 30%, and then we have raw materials, agriculture. So clearly, if we want to stabilize the naira, looking at petrol imports is just one little way to look at it. The real challenge we face is that majority of our imported goods isn't petrol, it is manufactured goods. So one of the things that the president needs to really be thinking about next is, how do you want to make Nigeria a manufacturing hub?
An industrialized nation.
And clearly, what will be our leverage? So what is going to give us an advantage? We clearly can't manufacture everything. So what will be our comparative advantage in areas of manufacture? We need to really take that seriously if we want to manage and stabilize the naira. And again, it depends on what our focus is. Do we have a plan to strengthen the naira, or do we have a deliberate plan to weaken the naira because of the benefits that may come from it? We're really not clear on what direction the government wants to go.
Another interesting thing I would like to point out to you, Babajide, of course, that Dangote refinery, there's talk perhaps it's receiving crude oil locally. Is there any evidence about that?
We've done a lot of research into that, and the evidence shows that, yes, in recent months, the NNPC, yes, has been giving the refinery crude oil. And if you take a look at some of the numbers shows that Dangote has been loading crude oil, is being allocated crude oil. The challenge he probably has is he has a refinery of 650,000 barrels per day. The crude oil that he's getting from the NNPC so far, we're looking at, if you look at, depending on the period you look at some points it's been 150,000, 160,000, 170,000. Potentially will be going as high as in excess of 300,000 barrels per day on an average from October. However, the challenge is, will Dangote as well, will he not be importing? And the evidence we have is if he's going to have to want to optimize his refinery's capacity, then it's also likely that even the refinery will keep importing petroleum products. But the challenge now is,
and that's of course that leads to the last question I was going to ask you as we round off very quickly. What are the implications as far as pricing is concerned?
What is clear is the prices are not about to go down. We clearly see now that
is that a fact? The prices are not about to go down.
Prices are not about to go down. That is the fact. That is the fact. If at all, prices may likely go up. So if it's on a probability, but looking at what exactly will the fuel queues be gone, the top three factors that will now determine Nigeria's fuel supply will be: keep an eye on the naira-dollar exchange rate, look at how much purchase volumes will the Dangote refinery be able to give the NNPC. If the NNPC chooses to stop importing, can we get stable volumes, or will the fuel queues return? And finally, what will the Minister of Petroleum Resources, President Bola Tinubu, what exactly is his vision for Nigerian consumers?
All right, we'll leave it at that. Babajide Ogunsanwo, thank you.
Well, so you heard the gentleman. How can Nigeria be competitive in its market, and how can they leverage their petrol in order to develop the country so it could, grow economically and critical infrastructure can thrive? So he was saying that, is Dangote going to continue to import products? And if they do import crude oil, is that going to affect their pricing and their distribution to Nigeria's state oil firm, NNPC? And then he was talking about, that snake president, Bola Tinubu, what his outlook is going to be. I could tell you that the NNPC and the Dangote fuel refinery should find some consultation outside of the government and maybe seek a group or a private consulting company, or seek consultation with, alleviating this problem of making gas more affordable, or just giving them different solutions to alleviate those who cannot pay the current petrol prices, as they try to develop and forecast ways they could, one, make oil more affordable for Nigerian citizens first, two, make sure that they don't have to rely on imports as much, and three, how can they work with the Dangote refinery in order to make Nigeria a manufacturing hub of raw material and resources, and things that they should have been doing way before all this corruption and Western entities like ECOWAS, interfering. So that should be interesting. That, petrol and the allocation of it as it relates to Nigeria is going to be an interesting development, and it's going to cause a lot of consternation and turmoil for those who don't want to see Nigeria nationalize its petrol and be able to take control of its resources. That's the theme here in West Africa. Everyone's trying to take control and take back their sovereignty and take back their resources in order to, build back up their country, so to speak. And the next story, Sahel Alliance to unveil biometric passports. So basically, as you all may or may not know, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger created they basically created basically a three-state country or initiative where they're all going to come together and make different economic development strategies through business, cultural engagement, technological innovation, and medical. So, in this aspect, the Sahel Alliance was created first and foremost to secure their borders as they were disevolving from ECOWAS, and that was causing a lot of, obviously Western, state-funded terrorism going on in the country. And, ECOWAS was supposed to be created in order to combat that terrorism and that violence and insecurity, but, they haven't been able to achieve that. And then, Traore and the other presidents have come to the understanding that they should just come together and form an alliance in order to control their borders and to control their population and to control their own sovereignty in order to create initiatives and goals and outcomes that are more beneficial for the people of West Africa. More importantly, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. And this passport only lends to them becoming more legitimized as a sovereign nation. So that means no foreign meddling, no foreign, influence. They want to, create initiatives that give them staunch sovereignty in order to create initiatives and come together culturally with their people in order to, take back their country, so to speak. And let's get into the news stories.
From the east, let's now shift focus to West Africa. The junta-led states, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, are going to launch a common biometric passport as they aim to solidify their alliance after splitting from regional bloc ECOWAS, which they claim is pro-West. Mali's military leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, said that the common biometric passport will facilitate the movement and mobility of citizens across the three nations, and he added that the three Sahel states will be working to put in place the infrastructure needed to strengthen connectivity. Goïta also said that they were planning to launch a shared information channel in order to promote a harmonious dissemination of information in the three states. The announcement came a day before the first anniversary of an alliance formed by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Last year on this day, the junta leaders formed the Alliance of Sahel States, or the AES, and withdrew from the regional bloc ECOWAS, which they accused of being manipulated by their former colonizer, France. In July this year, the three leaders held their first joint summit in the Nigerian capital of Niamey, where they have announced the confederation of the three Sahel states. The military government of the three states have drifted away from traditional Western allies and have grown closer to Russia. The Russian mercenary troops are present in these nations, helping the armies to fight separatists and Islamist groups. The West African neighbors are all battling jihadist violence that erupted in northern Mali in 2012 and spread to Niger and to Burkina Faso in 2015. The violence has killed thousands and has displaced millions across the region.
So again, they've created this initiative in order to have, in order to make goals on movement of their own citizens as it pertains to critical infrastructure and economic development. The one thing I think that they may have not covered is sovereignty. Again, sovereignty allows you to establish power and structures of how your country is run. It also allows a clear borders for foreign entities and foreign, relations, to understand these are our borders and this is our country, and this is our state, and this is independently ran by us and not not Western, puppets or Western entities, in the shadows. That's very important. And it also, sovereignty is important as it pertains to international relations and the world order. So people understand that, the Sahel Alliance, what their goals are, what type of nation they are, and what they are trying to accomplish. All these things are important for furthering the advancement of your country as it pertains to sovereignty and resources and just the movement of people. This is really a momentous thing, because this is the first time, or this is a huge thing, because colonialism has, stricken Africa for centuries. And now they see this man, Abraham Traore, who I personally saw talk about this revolution of taking back our resources and working together and making strategic relationships that help our people, and to cut out Western invaders or those who wish to do harm or continue to exploit Africans and the African population.
In a groundbreaking announcement, the Alliance of Sahel States, a coalition formed by Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, revealed plans to introduce a common biometric passport. This significant development, marking the first anniversary of the AES, is set to enhance regional mobility, security, and cooperation among these Sahelian nations. The decision underscores a major shift in West African geopolitics, highlighting the AES's commitment to fostering unity and self-reliance amidst growing security challenges and evolving international alliances. Why is this initiative so significant? And what does it mean for the broader regional dynamics? Today, we dive into what this means for the Sahel and beyond. On the one-year anniversary of the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, the leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso announced an initiative that could reshape the future of the region, the launch of a common biometric passport. This announcement, made by Mali's junta leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, highlights a significant step toward enhanced regional mobility, security, and cooperation. The regional bloc, like the Economic Community of West African States, have long dominated West Africa's geopolitical landscape. The breakaway of these three Sahel regions marks a departure from conventional frameworks. After withdrawing from ECOWAS, the AES has set its sights on forming a robust regional identity and addressing shared challenges through unity and collaboration. But what are the driving forces behind this ambitious project, and what might the future hold for the AES nations? The AES, formed in September 2023, represents a shift away from traditional West African frameworks. With security challenges and political shifts redefining the region, this move reflects the Sahel nation's desire to create a robust regional identity, independent of the Economic Community of West African States. The Alliance of Sahel States was established as a response to the escalating security threats in the Sahel region. Following military coups in each member state, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, withdrew from ECOWAS, rejecting external interventions and seeking a unified approach to their shared challenges. The AES was formed to address these issues through enhanced internal coordination and collective action. In addition to creating a joint military force to tackle terrorist threats, the AES has emphasized regional cooperation and self-sufficiency. The launch of a common biometric passport aligns with this vision by facilitating easier movement for citizens and promoting economic and social integration within the alliance. In parallel with regional initiatives, the AES has sought to bolster its international partnerships. During the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing, AES leaders, including Colonel Goita, met with Chinese officials to discuss enhanced cooperation. China's commitment to investing over $50 billion in Africa over the next 3 years presents a significant opportunity for the AES nations. Discussions focus on securing Chinese investments in key sectors such as infrastructure, energy, and this strategic alignment with China reflects and ECOWAS. Facilitating borderless movement, the passport aims to enhance economic ties, cultural exchange, and regional stability. However, this development also highlights the growing rift between the AES and ECOWAS. As the AES carves out its own path, it challenges the traditional regional order and sets a precedent for other nations in West Africa grappling with similar issues. The AES's success could inspire a re-evaluation of regional affiliations and cooperation models. The future of the Alliance of Sahel states will depend on its ability to address its internal and external challenges. The common passport and partnerships with global powers like China are crucial steps, but the AES must navigate issues of political stability, economic development, and regional security. The effectiveness of AES's initiatives will be closely watched. Success in these areas could pave the way for greater regional integration and influence, potentially attracting other nations seeking alternatives to ECOWAS. Conversely, failure to achieve its goals could undermine the alliance's credibility and impact its long-term value.
All right. I have all the videos in the description for the time sake. I'll let you all watch that on whenever. The links and all the news stories, article links will be in the description. So if you want to check that out for yourself. So basically, the Sahel Alliance is out to create an initiative to create an economic development, critical infrastructure, and they are, trailblazers, so to speak. They are, as the gentleman said, this is the first step to breaking away from Western economic models and cooperation models that haven't served them and have only left their population in violence, displaced, you name it. All these things that the West have gotten away with. Now the Sahel Alliance is a direct response to that. And Team Truth says that biometric passport solution does concern me if the three countries don't exercise their sovereign rights without the influence of Western powers. Well, yes, that is pivotal. They need to understand that what they're doing is, very, what's the word I want to use? They have to be very meticulous and scrupulous with how they frame this new initiative and how they want to have their borders opened and how they want movement of their own people. So that's something to look out for. I definitely believe that this is a step in the right direction, and they will be able to control their own investments, their own industry, and their own freedom of movement. This is the step in the right direction. They just need to be wary of China and all the other foreign entities that want to have their influence and don't really care about the well-being of the country and just want influence. All right, next story. Severe floods continue to hit northeastern Nigeria. Death toll climbs nationwide.
Severe floods on Wednesday continued to ravage northeastern Nigeria, impacting more than 400,000 people, according to the United Nations. In Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, about 15% of the city is underwater. The flooding has worsened the humanitarian crisis in the region, where armed violence has already displaced millions. With all our small children, we don't know where to stay now. The government should be sympathetic to allow us to stay longer in the camp, because if we go back to our house now, we will not have a place to sleep with our children. And if we go to someone else's house, we will not feel comfortable. Earlier this month, flooding killed 30 people in the state after the collapse of a major dam. The consequences of floods have killed at least 260 in the nation, devastating crops and livestock.
It's an absolute tragedy for these local people who had their homes wiped out due to the flooding and were already affected by conflict in the region. These are farmers that would rather be on their farms, now being hit by floods.
Authorities have warned of possible flooding in 11 states following the release of water from a dam in neighboring Cameroon. West Africa has experienced some of the heaviest flooding in decades this year, affecting over 2 million people.
Well, family, you hear the story. Unfortunately, my brothers and sisters in Nigeria, specifically northern Nigeria, are going through a very bad crisis. They are already displaced due to Boko Haram and all those other, groups that have displaced them based off of religion and all these other political things that really aren't the scope of the article, but it all coincides. And you see how this dam and the dissolving of it has left all these people displaced. Obviously, when there's flooding, you are prone to waterborne illness, and they already have things like malaria, and a lot of the people are immunosuppressed, and things can only get worse as they need aid and continue to live in a vulnerable area. It's quite sad, and I believe we could help by helping them with their flood infrastructure and shoring it up, alleviating different flood risks, seeking expertise in different factors of floods like topography, hydrology, and historical flood data, and using these different things to mitigate risk, because you don't have all these people living in these regions and not account for all these environmental risks. It's kind of unfortunate that the development and the infrastructure hasn't been kept up to the growing population of people and has left people vulnerable. And again, you could have flood protection consultants that can help with the watershed management of floods and where the water should go and how to treat the water and the water quality issues that arise from floods. And basically just strategies to mitigate floodwaters and how they could rehabilitate different infrastructures to withhold flooding, because this is unfortunate and shouldn't be happening in a nation such as Nigeria with all these people.
Up to 1 million people are believed to have been affected by devastating flooding in northeastern Nigeria. Emergency crews in the city of Maiduguri are still trying to reach people trapped by the floodwaters, which was caused by the collapse of a dam. Authorities say at least 30 people have been killed, but that death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue operations continue.
Scraping out the last grains of rice. Nothing can go to waste. With hundreds of thousands displaced, there's not enough food to go round. These women are eating raw potatoes. The people in the camp are facing extreme hardship. Even though people are helping and the government is helping, it's not sufficient. My younger brother is missing. I don't know whether he's alive or not. We haven't seen him. We need help. Please help my mother. There's no food. Please, we need help. Safe drinking water is also running low. These tanks are now empty. Humanitarian agencies are struggling to provide the essentials. Meanwhile, UN workers are trying to assess immediate medical needs. The latest floods have exacerbated an existing humanitarian crisis brought on by a 15-year Islamist insurgency in the region. These pictures from Friday show the extent of the flooding. Almost half of the city of Maiduguri is submerged following the dam burst earlier this week. It's the worst flooding in 3 decades. Thousands are still trapped in their homes. Emergency workers are trying to get food to them while they wait to be rescued. Others are missing. Nigeria is already facing food shortages. With so much farmland waterlogged, humanitarian agencies say they will need more assistance.
Chachu Tedicha is with Save the Children in Nigeria. He joins me from Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State in the country's northeast. Chachu, thank you for your time. Could you tell us what you're seeing and the general situation on the ground there?
Well, thank you very much. On Tuesday night this week, Maiduguri town experienced severe flooding, and approximately 40% of the town's surface area was submerged and displacing around 40,000 residents, and so many people affected. So while seasonal flooding is usually expected at this time, this one is unusual, and it happened. The last one was seen about 30 years ago, and therefore it caught everyone unawares, and it came with a large scale. So there's extensive damage on infrastructure, on the roads, bridges, businesses, hospitals, and schools. And also it poses very serious risk to food security because crops in the fields have been severely damaged, along with food in stores, and the markets and shops are also greatly damaged. So this creates another challenge for food security. And communities in Maiduguri have been very strong in resilience over the years, recovering from the many years of prolonged conflict. However, this flood could potentially reverse some of these gains. And it is hitting at a time when they're already experiencing challenges such as inflation and rising cost of basic necessities. Thank you.
So many people have been affected and displaced, as you've just been outlining for us. What do these people need the most right now?
What is needed most now is immediate access to food, because most of the shops are affected and people are displaced. Wet feeding, in other words, providing food which are cooked. So ready food is seriously needed to alleviate suffering. And many organizations, including Save the Children, are doing this. We are feeding about 5,000 individuals per day. Also, a number of children are separated from their families, so reunification efforts are required. And many organizations, including Save the Children, are also tracing and unifying the children with their families. Access to clean water is a big concern, so there's a lot of tracking effort by agencies, including Save the Children, to provide water for domestic use and also for drinking. Also, shelter is a challenge, and sanitation. So these are all issues because a number the shelter accommodation does not accommodate everyone. So there is need for shelter. There is need for sanitation facilities such as toilets, so that there is no open defecation and further hazards of diseases. Thank you.
That was Chachu Tadicha from Save the Children in Nigeria. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
As Avon Dillon says, we see a lot of dams break forth and need better infrastructure urgently. It's water management system. Hey, our people, family are prayers, in our prayers, excuse me, long night. Yes, exactly. They need better water management systems. They need city planning to help them become more resilient to extreme weather events such as flooding. Also, for have them to be more climate acclimated as it pertains to different seasons, or just whatever their weather lends to. They would need expertise as to to account for that and to plan for that and to mitigate whatever weather affects them regionally. As that gentleman said, it hasn't been this bad in a while. And here at Quest United Africa, we would just find brothers and sisters to help with city planning. I met brothers and sisters while I was in Burkina Faso, and they were experts in land, hearing them talk about land development, how towns and roads and the intricacy of all that, and how it matters and how it needs to be planned out very, 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 very ornately in order to help combat and make sure that the population isn't susceptible to the floods. And Bonetta Jones, as I call her aunt, Bonnie, says the dams are probably substandard. Also, probably you're right. The infrastructure is probably very lacking and old because the country is not investing in it, or the government and the leadership are not, they're not concerned with the population as much as they claim to be, or else these problems wouldn't be arising. And then the last news story, and I will spare you all, is Nigerian flood victims face long wait for medical help.
In a camp for people displaced by floods in Nigeria's Borno state, Bintu Amadou is among hundreds of people who've been waiting for hours to see a doctor. Her son had diarrhea. She says she's been waiting since yesterday, to no avail. Overwhelmed aid agencies have warned of an outbreak of waterborne disease amid the region's worst flooding in 3 decades. Hundreds of thousands of people, like Amadou, have been forced into displacement camps without food and clean water. And that's stretching aid agency and government resources, exacerbating a critical humanitarian crisis.
The demand is so massive, the needs are so massive.
Matthias Homare, a field coordinator for Médecins Sans Frontières, said that Borno residents were already struggling with malnutrition following years of a jihadist insurgency in the region. And that means their immunity was already suppressed.
People are living out and about. They are exposed to the environment. So what do we see? A lot of waterborne diseases, diarrhea, the diarrheic diseases. You've got malaria. Malaria is around with a lot of mosquitoes. People are not able to sleep under mosquito nets.
The floods, which have killed more than 30 people in Nigeria, started when a dam burst its walls. That's after heavy rainfall that has also caused floods in Cameroon, Chad, Mali, and Niger. In the last 2 weeks of August, more than 1.5 million people were displaced across 12 countries in West and Central Africa due to floods. That's according to the United Nations Humanitarian Office, which said around 465 people have been killed. Nigeria's government has separately warned of rising water levels in the country's largest rivers, which could cause floods in the oil-producing Niger Delta in the south.
Well, family, you heard it. Our people in Nigeria are suffering from malnutrition, diarrhea, which is no joke because if you aren't able to hold your food, or you aren't able to digest it and take in the nutrients, and you keep on having diarrhea, then you become malnourished. And waterborne diseases, and mosquitoes and malaria, all these things are what they are facing now. And we would just be able to step up and have those who are medical humanitarian aid workers who have expertise in that, or those who want to volunteer that have medical experience to go out there and help our brothers and sisters. Also, we can help by donating medical supplies and things of that nature, which the population need. There's so many things and opportunities where we could create business relationships or relationships through culture engagement in order to help and sustain our people throughout the diaspora and on the African continent. And I believe this is what we do here at Quest Unite Africa. We are here to help one another, empower one another, and make those strategic relationships. You'll always hear me say that, relationships that help benefit one another. And as we move into this crazy geopolitical order of the nations and the West and the East, as they so to speak, as they are now scrambling for Africa and its resources, and are trying to position themselves in order to do deals with Africa in order to sustain their own nations, because that's how they've always done it. It's just now that our brothers and sisters on the continent are smarting up about that exploitation, and now they want to do better because they know better. And that's where it starts. Just as we know better as to how what's going on in our own states here in America, and what they're trying to do, and how they're trying to single us out of their future kingdom, or whatever future nation that they're trying to hold on to. So why should we hope for them to meet our goals or meet our needs here as second-class citizens, not only in America but also all throughout the diaspora? So now we all understand that we need each other, and we need to form those relationships. And that's what we're here to do at Quest Unite Africa: create economic development, to promote economic development and critical infrastructure through initiatives and relationships that help benefit the African diaspora and the African continent. And thank you for joining me on this Friday. I hope everyone enjoys their Shabbat, and stay prayed up, family. A lot of things are going on. We are closer and closer to that day, and we will not be fearful. All we do is store up the time, restore our time, because the days are evil, and we restore the time by helping one another, empowering one another, and doing what our Creator set us out to do. And on that note, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Shabbat shalom.